Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell, and with me, as always, is Dr. Brian Wolf. And together we are Physio Growth. Physio Growth is a mentorship group, and we really specialize in taking physical therapy and just really any healthcare business owner and helping them to realize how they can grow their business, get out of these ruts, right? And we do that with our mastermind group. We meet every week. We do a Q&A. And every week there's a different topic that we kind of discuss. So it's a really great value. Check it out. All the stuff is in the show notes. And today we are going to be talking about a concept we call, I don't know, did we steal it from somebody, called intrapreneurship? So company building
Shout out to Jimmy
building a
McKay
company
on that
within a
one. I like
company
that.
is what I usually call it.
Yeah, shout out to Jimmy McKay dropping that on a podcast I did with him. He said entrepreneurship. I was like, I like that. I like that.
There you go.
So building a business or brand within a company. I love that.
All right, so let's flesh that out a little bit more for the listeners, right? So what we're talking about is you're an employee in a company. Maybe you don't want to jump into entrepreneurship, and you're looking at maybe making it so that you're more valuable to your company, so this could help in salary negotiations, or you're on the other side of the table. You're the manager, the owner of the company, and you're saying, man, how do I get my employees to be way more engaged? Where do I get to stop this burnout, to stop this like job dissatisfaction that's kind of plaguing the PT industry? So like, kind of explain to me what the concept of entrepreneurship is and how it can kind of help.
So I think the biggest thing I would say about this is the way it came about was we were talking about it, like I said, with Jimmy McKay about kind of like on the PT Pinecast about you know essentially how you can how people who are employees in physical therapy, they think that the only way in orthopedics to make more money sometimes is to like start their own business. And I think that that's just not true at all. If anything, our last podcast we talked about Owen and how you can climb the corporate ladder and how you can do different stuff and how you can really add more value. I think the biggest thing to realize if you're any type of new physical therapist, that understanding is now, if you're I'll give you a great example. I have when I look at my staff in general, I look at people who work for us and I look at PTs that I've worked with. If you're a new graduate physical therapist, work on becoming a better physical therapist, right? Like I don't know even what that timetable is, right? Owen, is it a year? Is it 2 years? I think it's whenever you get dropped 12 patients or 15 patients or 16 patients probably on your schedule, more than where it feels a little bit uncomfortable no matter what,
Mhm.
but you also feel like it's not a big deal. Like you're like, it's just normal. I can get through this. And it's not like I'm seeing stuff that's taking me an hour or I don't know what to do and I get
Yeah.
stuck in a position, right? Like as a skill set wise.
Yeah, I would
After
usually coach people like you should be able to have seen a certain diagnosis and have like a lot less processing time, right?
there you go.
A
Right?
busy
Like
day
the
should
process
feel
time, right?
not awesome but comfortable.
Like that's a great way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
So basically what I'm saying is once you get to that point, if you want to make more money within a company, you have to develop other skill sets. And so one of the things I think that Owen was talking about that I loved was you were talking about the retention of employees. And
Mm.
a way to think about retention of employees is a lot of companies like ours, what we'll do is if someone builds a specific program that brings in patients and particularly patients that they love to see, it's a win-win situation. They're seeing the patients they want to see. We know they have a referral machine. So ultimately, if they've built this referral machine and can create this, we want to pay them more money. Not
Mhm.
we're going to pay them more money. We want to pay them more money because
Yep.
ultimately they become more valuable, right? And so I think what I'm getting at when we're kind of chatting is the idea of like how to develop those programs. So what are some ideas of how to do that? And so
Yeah.
that's what I think the idea of entrepreneurship is. What are different systems and programs you can build within your current working situation where right now this year you can end up making more money?
Yeah, so let's break that down from two different viewpoints, right? So like what the because again, this is a podcast primarily looking towards entrepreneurs, right? So I think from a perspective of like, how would one foster that in their company, right? So like you said, we want to pay them more money. So you got to think, okay, where are we getting that money from? How do I justify it, right? So I think that at least from my side, my corporate side, where I did a lot of kind of asset allocation and things like that, the biggest thing that I would say as an owner that I would justify it to maybe somebody who wasn't doing that, would say, look, physical therapist A is bringing me more patients. I want to eventually open a third clinic so I can help more of our community. And because I don't have to spend the money marketing, because I have therapist A, right? I'm much more willing to give therapist A some of that marketing money, right? And that's where you can have that conversation if you have multiple employees of like, while I understand being skillful is great, if you can't bring in more people because of that skill, right? Then this is why we're looking to try and supplement this person's income. So I know from like a management perspective, we would usually say that to people of like, look, we get there. You could either do an incentive structure of like referral bonuses, because the people who do that, the therapist A in this example, tend to also be pretty busy and stay busy, right? So that's where your volume based sort of incentive structure comes in. If you don't want to be looking at day to day numbers, right? You don't want to be very like, I need you to see 100 people a day type of sounding thing. Then you could be based on referrals, right? So how many referrals say they came in from your source, right?
Yeah.
So these are ways that as a manager you can kind of encourage this, but obviously you need the right therapist for it.
And that's also through like just incentives, like from the insurance side, which you're talking about, like how to get in more patients, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to talk a little bit different because I think for us, like one of the things one of the things that people, especially physical therapists, that if you're listening to this and you're a physical therapist that agrees with this, um, one of the things I think people talk about within my organization at times is I want to do more stuff in strength and conditioning, right?
Yeah.
But what does that mean,
Mhm.
right? Number one, if you want to do more stuff in strength and conditioning, consider the fact that strength and conditioning people on the norm generally make less money than physical therapists in
Mhm.
general, probably by a third, to give you like as a rough
Yep.
context.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody kind of has an idea. So when you think about this process, right? If you're going to build a strength and conditioning program, you kind of like got to build it through yourself in a unique way.
Mhm.
So if somebody wants to build it, they got to like again, like I've had this happen a couple times. Like I want to get more into strength conditioning. I'm like, cool. All right, so how do you want to do that? Well, I don't know. Well, kind of a tricky situation when you don't know
Yeah.
what the hell to talk about. So it's like, let's start this way, and we got to start that process. Well, I don't know if I love that idea. All right, well, like come up with, like, give me something. You got to give me something here.
Yeah.
Give and take. So I think the aspect of one, you can build stuff through strength conditioning, through whether it's personal training, small group training, large group training, whatever. There's lots of different ways to do it. And you can
Yep.
refer in, you can market within the clinic, you can build referral partners, that kind of thing. All sorts of stuff we've talked about on the podcast. The other aspect of it is you can create workshops where there's like different workshops for doing strength workshops, and
Yep.
that can attract people too. But you can also charge for those workshops because they're
Yeah.
driven by a physical therapist. There's value to that, right? For
And
sure.
one thing we would do, just to stop you before you get into workshops,
Yep.
we would, if somebody created something proprietary, right, and let us use it, we would just pay them a percentage of it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of this with, I know with us, we use school as a platform for our mentorship, but imagine, Brian, if somebody came up to you and said, look, I want to spend the next 4 weekends doing videotaping like an online course for, let's say, for me, my niche, golfers, right? And I want to do it, and I think that it could really make us money if we market it, you know, in our local area, plus maybe online if people follow us, right? And you say, sure, fine, whatever. I just, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That could be something where somebody could really, add value without having to do like a single workshop that could create a product, right? And then you guys have a conversation about like, okay, what percent ownership is this? Because of course you're funding their ability to do it and all that. So that's what we would used to do with like educational programs and things in one of my previous companies.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you think about that, like someone asked me this the other day. They're like, "Well, what?" And again, as a physical therapist, that you're paying a salary. I'll give you a great example. Like one of the physical therapists we have wants to do more strength and conditioning stuff, and he goes, "Well, if he does one-on-one training, like what money can we cut him if he's doing it outside of his physical therapy hours? So outside of his 40-hour salaries, motivated dude who's like, I want to do one-on-one training and do small group training." And I was like, we'll pay him a sweet amount of that. Right? Like I
Yeah.
think we were even talking like a 50-50 split because I was like, that's just money on top of what we're
Oh
already
wow.
paying him that he's doing
Yeah.
this extra revenue. Like it's more money that he's building. So, We had
Yeah.
talked about kind of like seeing more patients, like he's just doing what he wants to do, just in more of a fashion. And
Yeah.
so obviously, if it takes over and keeps building, we'll just keep building with him on that front, right? And we're
Yeah.
trying to build fitness stuff all the time because it's just a fun thing. We all believe in it. So we're attracting PTs who believe in that same system and grow with us. So
Yeah.
I think when it comes to that, it's so important to think about because he can make a buttload of money only a couple years out of school, in the aspect of just trying to develop this really great program. And we're going to foster that and help him build it, right?
Yeah.
We're going to give him the referral tools. We're going to put money behind it. Like that's the aspect for us is that's, I think, when you think about this idea of entrepreneurship, so many people think like, especially when you think about cash physical therapy or insurance-based physical therapy and starting your own business, I think that people don't realize, like I've told the story. I started the business thinking I wanted to spend more time with my family. And I
Hmm.
also always had this niche for the business side, and I thought it would be fun to do. And I had friends who had business degrees, and I thought it'd be cool to get into it. Then what I realized is very quickly is if you're going to be a business owner, you're going to work 80 hours a week. It's just the reality of the situation, right? It's just
Yeah.
how it works. So as I got going in the process of building the business, I also fell in love with the way of doing it and building the business.
Hmm.
And understood that there were different times where I could create more flexibility around and
Yep.
then ultimately allow that to be better. And so the reason I bring that up is if someone I didn't realize that like health insurance overhead, right? Like websites, like we've
Hmm.
talked, like rent, right? All these different things, like how much they were going to eat out of our regular, daily businesses and daily
Yeah.
life in terms of finances. And so when I look at in general, people, there could be a lot easier barrier to if you're just like, I want to make more money and create more flexibility, you could do it within an organization a lot faster. No
Yeah.
doubt about it. There are
Yeah.
PTs in corporations that probably make more money than I do as a salary, right? So even though
Yeah.
my business has probably made more money, it doesn't mean just because we have a great revenue stream that comes in, doesn't mean that I'm collecting that money because I got rents to
No.
pay, I got people to pay, right? All this stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of the idea behind the entrepreneurship. So I think again, there's ways to do that as well. The workshops you can set up, right? There's so many cool ways to do that. I have one
Yeah.
therapist who I always thought she should do like a kettlebell workshop because she does such cool stuff with mobility and training and injury prevention. So I was like, God, you should just do a workshop with here. If she did even once every other week or once a quarter or twice a quarter or whatever, you could charge like 50 to $100 per applicant. You get 30 people in a room. That's $3,000. You
Yeah.
split that with somebody, and the other guy's got to pay the rent. That's $1,500 in your
Yeah.
pocket. Multiply that 8 times. Like that's pretty nice money. You know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
and I can tell you, just listening to this and listening to you as an owner of a multi-clinic site, right? You are not the norm, right? I have sat with board members of very, very, very profitable companies. I've met with people who've been in rooms with others, right? And literally the conversation is just like, how do I pump more money out of this? Right. And it's you see more patients, lower salary costs equals more return on investment. Great, sell it to the next idiot. He carries the bag until it eventually, all blows up in somebody's face, but hopefully
Yeah.
not ours. Right.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're looking at this and saying, and this is a tip for anybody who's like interviewing, right? Like these are the types of things you want to know from the person who you're going to be employed by is like, do they actually want to do this? Right. Because, like you said, yeah, I mean, Brian could choose to take home a lot of money, right? And also tell his therapist, screw it. You got to see more people, right? Um, and he could do that. He could make a good living doing that. But a lot of the things that you have to look at as the owner and as an employee looking to work for an owner is where's their head at?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, a question that I would actually love for people to ask me is what's my path here to make more money?
Yeah.
Like, where do I start and where
Don't
do
be
I
afraid
go
to
to get it?
answer that. Don't be afraid to ask that question because if a manager's interviewing you, they're already asking that question. They want
Yes.
to hear somebody else asking that question.
Yeah. I think that's and maybe I want to start interviewing PTs. I'm going to start asking this question. How do you see the path to you making more money? How does that look?
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like in my idea, I think the bigger thing is that people are just skewed by their situation in the moment and don't plan, right? They don't
Hmm.
plan for that. Like, how do I grow here
Yeah.
financially,
Yep.
right? And I don't want it to be financially driven. I don't think a lot of people are financially driven. But I
Yeah.
do think that it makes a lot more sense, to ultimately keep continuing to grow within an organization. And people, listen, if people think they're not financially motivated and they're like, I didn't get into this to be financially motivated, totally get it, totally respect it. But don't act like you don't want money.
Yeah.
Don't act
Right.
like you don't want a salary, right? You may not need $500,000 to be happy. Get it, but
Yeah.
making $120,000 puts you in a nicer home than 80,000. Just the
Yeah.
reality of the world. And
It makes
so
life
if you
easier
can
to
do the
live. Yeah.
same thing you love to do every single day for 120 versus 80, awesome. So like,
Yeah.
how can you do that on your own? And if you truly love to do what you want to do, you'll put more effort towards getting to that goal, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big piece of that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the bad apples get the news, right? Like the when it's, you're seeing 20 people in a day, or everything sucks. But I will tell you, there are good business owners out there who want to see everybody succeed. And I think that if you are one of those business owners, and you see yourself in a long period of this season of business where you're trying to help the profession get better, I think the Physio Growth Mastermind group is going to be a good one for you.
For
It
sure.
allows,
Sorry, go ahead, Owen. I got you.
no, I was
You
going to say,
were
it
going.
allows you to learn the financial side so that you're not constantly worried about that. And it allows you to kind of live that mission.
And I think one of the things that we're constantly learning, and one of the things that you just talked about, Owen, is the retention side and how beneficial that is.
Hmm.
And I think that in my mind, when I see me and Owen doing these podcasts, there's also a lot of stuff that I learn from Owen on and people learn from. So we're always constantly in these groups, in these school groups, constantly talking about things. And so for me, I would really encourage people, like, if you want validation and how to grow and how to build, jump in our mentorship group, Physio Growth, physio-growth.com. Come check it out. We have an awesome school group. It's $99 a month. It's not expensive. Something easy. You can learn tons of different skills that will help level you up, make more money. So that's one of those things where this group is designed to help PTs at any point of their career to make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we are out, my friend. Have a
Cool.
good one.
You too, bud. See ya.
See you.